right off the hop. I don't even want to have this conversation because it's stupid and it shouldn't be a thing, and it is, and I may as well just like get it over with and just never talk about it again. Oh my goodness. I'm having a really hard time with, I was about to say with living, but that's a whole different topic. I feel as though part of it is generational, I think. Part of it is like a certain number of generations that have been here for certain types of transitions might find it very difficult to adjust and adapt to the way things are. I can't see a benefit for the way things are, and maybe that's part of the problem. So, I don't even know how to get to the point. It's just like our society seems to be moving further and further away when it comes to like customer service, consumerism, capitalistic type stuff in regards to how they deal with the actual consumers and customers. It seems like it moves further and further and further away from providing any benefit to the customer. The only time there's a benefit to the customer is if there's benefit to the seller, to the company, right? Which I understand in a capitalistic sense of like, okay, but I guess this is where the breakdown is, to like get right to it, I think, and try to be concise. It used to be, from my memory, even in my, like, the couple decades, that I was aware enough of things and I can recall, the past 20 years or so to a certain degree within this realm of what we're talking about, you would have to sacrifice a certain amount of money to make a certain amount of money. And that if you were not making customers happy, you would lose business. And that's not a thing anymore. And I think part of it is just like way more chains, way more conglomerates, way more monopolies, and less independent businesses. And those independent businesses have to try even harder now to offer things that those chain stores don't offer. And there's a lot of independent business that's just like not going to exist at all, depending on the area in which you try to sell your goods or services that automation and things like that can do for you. And in some aspects, maybe like people 20 years older than me can see like, yeah, this was happening a long time ago. What are you talking about? And they, I just feel like it just accelerates and gets worse and worse and worse. And I just can't think, I feel like it accelerates, it has been accelerating more. I just think of things just like automating simple things like trying to get customer service when you phone something. So I was trying to buy a new phone. I haven't bought a new phone for like 5-ish years. I was still rocking an S10, and I had like this old plan, and then I had to get a new plan, and it was just like ridiculous. And just like I've had to phone, I go through TELUS, and I've had to phone them before about this or that, or you try to phone the bank, or you try to phone this, and everything's just automated, and you're like speaking because they don't even want you to press numbers anymore because why I don't even know. It doesn't offer a better experience because then you're hearing all these things in the background, and then you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. And I'm like, that's because I wasn't talking. I'm on the phone and I'm outside. What do you want me to do? And it just makes things so much harder. And like right now, I just got emails from Facebook saying that UMG, like Universal Music Group, and Warner Brothers have filed a claim or a dispute, or I can file a dispute, but they have a claim against like a video of mine. And I was like, well, what video? What are you talking about? And it said that I only have 7 days to dispute it, otherwise they do whatever and take it down. And I'm like, what video though? Like it says, and there was just one hyperlink, and it was like, click here to go to Facebook and see. And it links me to my support inbox, and there's nothing there. And trying to get help, like that's the thing. I'm thinking about Etsy, Facebook, Instagram. Like, if you try to actually get help from somebody, like imagine trying to talk to one of those people on the phone. You haven't been able to for years. Like Etsy, you still can a little bit. Even Canada Post, it's hard to like get someone on the phone sometimes because they just want like, oh, well, you can find help here. I'm like, no, I can't. All your little articles and all whatever are not solving this problem. Like, I need to speak to a person. Like, there's nuance involved here that doesn't fit into your little thing that says like, well, if you're having this issue, then try this. If you're having this issue, then try that. And I just feel like, man, like this is dystopia. Like this is like, these are first world problems, granted, but it's like it definitely makes me wish that I would take the time to learn the skills to just like. That's like the living off the land, off the grid type stuff. That I'm like, yeah, I don't need to. I need to just let go of it more, which is why I was like, I don't even want to have this conversation because I'm just bringing it all up for myself. But it's just like, it's bananas. Like, you just can't get help. You need help with a thing, and they're just like, everything's so automated that I'm like, they're making decisions based off of what? Like, it's something incorrect. Like, you got AI scanning my Instagram for something, and you think you saw something that you didn't, and then you're hitting me with like with like some kind of like going against community standards or whatever because you thought you saw something. Like, I don't even like, it's just it's ridiculous, and there's no human eyes on it to correct that. And if I want to actually speak to someone or try to get it corrected, then I can't. And it's like, why do you trust this system? It's obviously not working, but it's in the best interest of the company to not employ those people to do that. And the thing is, because they're not going to lose business by doing it. Because how many people are going to be like, well, I just won't use Instagram then? I don't think very many, right? Or it's like, I'm not going to use this thing then because it doesn't, I don't like the way that they handle this. I'm like, I don't like the way that they handle it either, but what are my options? How do I just stop using it, right? And that's really difficult, and it sucks. Or even just like at Michael's, like they recently, in the past year, started getting some self-checkouts. Well, now you've got 5 self-checkouts and 1 legitimate checkout with like a person that should be there that can take cash. Because as of right now, you can still use legal tender if it's in the form of cash, but in the future, maybe not. Maybe that'll get phased out too. And they've got 5 of these self-checkouts. 2 of them don't work. They haven't worked for the last week. So there's 3 open, but you've got 1 person just standing there that's supposed to like help in case you have any problems or whatever, or try to catch you stealing maybe. But this is an example. I'll use 2 examples with self-checkouts, and it's like, I understand like there's innovation, whatever, and stuff, but this is all based around money. It is not based around the customer experience. Because what's the data on how many people would use a self-checkout, assuming they're easy to use, because depending on where you go, they're ridiculously hard to use, and it's like, I put my canvas bag there, and then it's reading it as a product, and then you got to drop this, and you got to put this in before you grab another thing, and it's so ridiculous sometimes. But anyway, this person's standing there, and there's 3 people at the self-checkouts, but then this person, their till is open, but they don't help you. They just wait. They refer to you to a self-checkout, and they're like, oh, we'll just wait for one. I'm like, but yours is open. Like, well, are you paying cash or debit? And I was like, debit. They're like, oh, we just take cash at that one. I'm like, but you have a debit machine right there. I can see it. They're like, oh, yeah, but you have to use a self-checker. I'm like, but there's a debit machine attached to your till. Like, you could just help me right now. But I have to wait? You have a till open, but I have to wait. And it's just like, what if there are 2 self-checkouts that are having problems? And you're there to resolve one, and this other person just has to wait. Like, if you had just people at a till, let's say you have 1 self-checkout, or I don't know what the ratio would be, right? Of like, I don't want to talk to anyone, I just want to do my own stuff, I want to bag my own stuff, and you could always bag your own stuff anyway, but like, I just want to do it myself. What's the ratio of that? Is it 10%? I don't know. 20? 25? That if we didn't just get forced to do it, that we would actually just wait in line and prefer a person? But like, you can still have one over there for that person, fine. And then and then you can have one, like, you'd have 1 person per till. Do you know what I mean? So then it's like, well, if something goes wrong at 2 tills at the same time, you've got 2 people trying to fix it simultaneously, rather than 1 person trying to fix this one, and they can't get over here to help you with this until they're done fixing that one. And like, I had this happen at Walmart the other day. So in that situation, you've got some tills open in the middle, and on either side you've got double the amount of tills, triple the amount of tills sometimes that are self-checkouts. Except half of them aren't even open, and then you end up having a line clogged. I'm like, this isn't even open. The self-checkout isn't open. Half of them aren't even open. This doesn't make sense. But you've got 1 person who's like watching all of these self-checkouts. And then there's there's always problems because it's like, oh, you didn't scan this, you didn't do that, whatever. And someone's got to check. In Walmart, they record you and everything. And it's bananas. And that's the thing, I started using the self-checkouts at Walmart only because the people this is also just part of it. Like, the people stopped bagging groceries. They just stopped bagging them. I'm like, what do you? Isn't this part of your job? Isn't this what you do? Like, you're just bringing. You're not even bagging them anymore. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna bag my own stuff anyway, I may as well go to the self checkout. But I had to weigh some apples because there are certain things you still have to put in place on the scanner / scale, and then it weighs it. And I buy apples every week, and I had to weigh them, and I put them down, and they weren't all necessarily center on the scale. I don't know the parameters and the dimensions of the scale sitting underneath this thing. I don't know if it's this part or if it's this part, whatever. But they, not all of them were on the scale. And that was purposeful. I assumed that there would be like half an apple or maybe a whole apple and a half or something that was like off the, where I assumed the scale would be. But it detected that. They created technology to detect, and I don't know how, that there's weight that's not on the scale, which means you need another scale? Like, I don't understand. I don't even get it. And it recorded it, and or maybe because it visually has, again, you've got AI doing these things, and it can do incredible things, but none of this enhances the customer's experience. None of this enhances the user's experience. It is the corporation's experience that it enhances, because it waved someone over, and it immediately replayed the fact that these apples, like, it showed me putting the apples down, and they weren't exactly where they were supposed to be. And they didn't. This person didn't care at all. They were just like punched in a code and then it went away. And they didn't get me to reweigh them or anything. But it was just like again, none of this enhances my experience because they don't care if they lose me as a customer. They don't care. It doesn't matter. Whereas, an independent bookstore, an independent grocer, an independent whatever, it matters. At the same time, they don't have the capability, the money, the finances, the people to necessarily do everything to enhance your experience to the degree that would be beneficial for everyone, because there's only so much that they can do. They're you know what I mean? Like, if they have to step out, they don't have 20 other employees in the building that can just cover for them while they step out for a second because of an emergency or whatever happens. And then they're not open. And then I get cheesed off because I go somewhere and that place isn't open. I'm like, but your hour, and it happens all the time. It's like numerous independent businesses. You go down there and then you have to like check now. You got to check. You got to try to phone. They don't have a phone number. They just got it on Instagram or Facebook. Sometimes they update. Oh, we're actually closed right now. Sorry. Sometimes they don't. And it's like, if I'm like a couple blocks away, I should be able to just go when you're open, and you should be open. But that's not the reality. And I understand that it's not the reality, but it's frustrating. But everything's frustrating now. That's the thing. Nothing is there to enhance your experience because your experience doesn't matter. It's like, unless you're in that 1%, no one's helping you to help you. No one's doing anything to help you because you're not giving them money to do it. Unless you're paying exorbitant amounts of money. I'm going to look that word up again. I think I'm just using it because I heard it used in combination in this sentiment without even actually knowing what it means, which is stupid. So anyway, unless you're paying just a bananas amount of money for something, you're not getting quality service. And that's the other thing. So much like customer service has gone down, not just because of automation and AI and whatever else, and not wanting to pay people to work, but the people that are still left over working. I mean, we're talking about like, I was at TELUS and it was like a problem. There's just people, the quality of humans is decreasing. The intelligence is decreasing, but also the care decreases too. It's like, well, this person at McDonald's, how can I expect them to get my order right? Because they don't care. They have to do they're bound by completing everything in like X amount of seconds, or they're going to get dinged, or like, there's just no attention to detail because there's no incentive for them because they're not going to get fired. Like, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. It works for the 1%. And again, this stuff sounds like really obvious, but at the same time, it's just like hitting me more and more and more and more. Like, every day that I go out and interact with people, if I have to go buy things, and this is why maybe more people do go with Amazon and do whatever. I'm like, you can't trust people to do their job effectively anyway. So it's like, why bother? Let me just use Amazon. But then you're feeding that machine, and then it just ends up in this horrible loop. So I try just to move on and not get into this whole thing, but it's ridiculous.